Welcome back to MaxsGarajMahal. We're here with the old Hustler Super Z 927053. That is the model number. Has a Kohler CV745 28 horsepower engine, and it's pretty well been running oil. It's been cooked, it's been, you name it. Poor old motor's had it done to it. So we're going to flush this motor out, and what we're doing to flush it out, pardon the air conditioner noise of the big house over there. It's making a little too much noise, but hey, it is what it is. So what we've done is we've topped this thing off with a Walmart brand SuperTech conventional 20W50 motor oil, and the specs on it are API SN Plus, so it's for all the latest model engines, and it's retro all the way back. I used this to top off the hydraulic fluid in this thing just to test it with. So we're going to use this stuff right here to flush the engine, and we're going to see how many times we have to do this. So we topped it off with this, and then we added a concoction of this. Been mixed up for a little over 3 years. You don't use a lot of it. 1 gallon of diesel fuel. Lord, let me get way back here where you can see me. How's that? 1 gallon of diesel fuel, and I think it's got, well, it's 3 quarts diesel and about a quart of automatic transmission fluid, but it basically just smells like straight up diesel. Whew, nasty. But anyway, we just got through putting about 8 ounces of this in with the motor oil, and let's go ahead and pull the dipstick. Seems we've got a fuel leak here apparently this morning. One of the old fuel hoses. I'm going to replace all the fuel hoses because they're all rotten, cracked. It looks like I may replace them even before I was ready for it. So that's one thing about cleaning everything up. We're going to find out all the problems. There's an oil leak down here on the hydraulic, and the engine has oil leaks all over it. So let's pull this dipstick out. And we'll go over here and try to show you this dipstick, show you how dirty this oil is. And I don't know if it's going to focus on it or not. I really can't tell out here in the sun, but I believe it did. So we're going to fire this thing up. Let it run for a few seconds. Now I have to admit that I did this inside the Garage Mahal, and I backed it out from there to here, and I'm outside in the shade, and yeah buddy, I believe that's going to help. So I'm outside in the shade because it's only about, I think it's 84 degrees, 85 degrees a while ago. Have about a 2-mile-an-hour breeze, so I'm going to get as much done out here as possible. And I may run it just a little bit longer and let that get really up in the heads, and because I know when I pulled this engine tins off, it was really caked inside there. I mean, it's just solid cake. And at the same time, I'm going to look for this fuel leak, which that's a pretty dangerous way to go about it. But at the same time, we're going to do both. And I may run in there real quickly and grab the fire extinguisher, bring it out. But when I get to the next point, I'll come right back, show you where we're at, show you what we got done. And we're not going to change the oil filter yet. We're going to just keep draining the oil out and running this through a couple of 3 times. And then we'll change the oil filter, and we'll add a little extra, we'll add a little bit extra ATF to it, and just plain old cheapest automatic transmission fluid we can find. And we'll pour in there with some of this 2050 SuperTech Walmart brand oil. And by the way, now Walmart does not make anything. They do not build it. They have everything done, like Sears, Lowe's, Home Depot. All these things are branded. Hustler, Big Dog, Husqvarna, you name them. None of them makes their own oil. They don't dig it out of the ground. They don't refine it. They don't can it. They don't brand. All they do is they brand it, and then they sell it to you with whatever the engine specs are that Kohler, Kawasaki, Briggs & Stratton, Vanguard, Yamaha, Honda, whomever that you, by the way, and there's a lot of these mowers today. I learned at the GIE Expo last year, October in 2019, several different brands of these mowers now have the Chinese motors on them, and none of these people manufacture their own motor oil. So as long as your specification is proper, then it will lubricate your engine just fine. You're going to hear a lot of arguments about how that's wrong, how you should only use Kohler brand oil or Kawasaki brand oil. You do what you want to do, but you're wasting your money. I was in the oil business from 1961 till 2004. We used to can oil for every brand on the market, and we opened the spout, we added or subtracted the additives that the companies did not want, but they all had to have the minimum of the latest API and the other companies out there that were actually specifying for their chemicals. So you do what you want to do, guys. And all you real smart guys there at home that knows everything there is to know about motor oil, I promise you, if I take some of that stuff and I pour it into a different bottle and I seal it up like it's from the factory, guarantee you, you cannot show me which bottle or which one of those tanks I brought it out of and put your label on it. So just let you know how smart you all are. Buy you that $20 bottle of oil, the motor does not care. Just to get you up to date. Okay, now with that said, and all of you think I'm real smart aleck now, that's okay. But I also try to teach you how to do things on the least amount of money as possible and make sure you're getting everything you can out of your machine. That was just a little lesson for today. Okay, so we're going to get some things done. We'll catch you back up shortly. By the way, we're going back to the hand thing. Y'all like this? Okay, now here's what we're going to do. We'll try to take you through this step by step for somebody what ain't never changed oil before. We're going to take some of this clear tubing. It's 1/2 inch ID, 5/8 OD. We're going to take this tubing, and there is a spigot right there. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a spigot, and we've got a number 18 millimeter tool. We're going to hold this, keep that from turning. We've got a 10 millimeter socket here. We're going to break that loose after we cut this hose to run it down into the drain, so that we make sure we don't get this all over the place. So what we're going to do is sort of measure that out. Use about that much of it right there. Only on the side without the label, of course. So we'll redo that real quickly. Try to do it on the camera for you here. Alright, we're going to pull it out like that. I'm going to measure this stuff from right here down into that pan. Right about there. And then we're going to take this trusty old case pocket knife here. And we're going to attempt to cut that off nice and straight. Sort of like that right there. Okay. Now, we're going to put this sucker on that spigot. Just like that. I'll aim it down in there like that. Take that kink out of it. I made it a little bit long for different applications. And let me see if you can see that or not. Alright, I'll attempt to move you right around here. And see if we can zero you in a little bit better. Now then. Alrighty. Now I think you'll be able to see that. I'm going to take the number 10 socket on a ratchet, and then I'm going to take this 18 and hold this sucker, and then we're going to break this loose. Maybe, maybe not. Sucker's tight. Alright. And since I've never done this on this particular engine, we're going to find out if it turns in or out. Does it turn in? So it's going to turn out. Alright. And I should have done this inside because it'd be a whole lot cooler. Alright. Just sucker back on here. Alrighty. It is counterclockwise. Now then, I'm just going to screw that out with my fingers until it starts flowing, and there she comes. And boy, that's some thick sludge, I'm not kidding you. Alright, let me see if I can get the camera down here, so y'all hang loose. I know I do this to y'all a lot. Alrighty. Now then, let's see if I can get this where you can see it here. Probably ought to zoom back out. See how slow that's running? Really slow. I'll tell you what, let's take the oil cap loose. See if it'll let a little air in the system. Alrighty. Now while this is draining, I'm going to pick up some more oil and a filter or two, and we'll come back and we'll finish this little project up, and then we'll see if it doesn't sound a little bit better. And it's not going to sound good until you see that wrap right over on the exhaust. That's where that exhaust is broken loose, and we've got to fix that, put a new tube on it, a new tailpipe basically that goes into the muffler. So we've got that to repair, to get this thing quietened down where the neighbors don't come outside shaking their fists like they just did a minute ago. Anyway, we've got a lot to do on this whole thing, and we'll try to keep you in the loop as we do it. So that's where we're at right now, trying to get this old girl in as good a shape as we can get that motor, so we can get it to run as fast as possible and pull as good as possible. So we shall be back shortly. Alrighty, here we are back, and we've got us some Super Tech heavy duty SAE HD30, And we're going to pour that in there along with some more of that kerosene right over there. And as you can see, it's pretty much stopped draining. I've drained the filter, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but I've cleaned that filter boss, and I found a little dab of carborundum in there. Coming past, it would have gotten past the rings and down into oil, and that's the reason why you change your oil, is because oil really doesn't wear out. It becomes contaminated with all kinds of fuels, moistures, contaminations such as dirt, and especially carborundum that gets past the rings. Rings don't always travel at the same speed. You've got like 2 compressions and an oil ring. An oil ring is comprised of an expander and 2 oil rings, and the way they're set up is you set original from the factory, you set the expander across from the same direction as the pin. Then you'll set your ring gaps, one at 90 degrees to the pin on the top side, then 180 degrees out for the opposite ring or the bottom ring. And the compression rings are the same way. You always set them up 180 degrees out, minimum of 90 degrees. People always misread that when they look at a set of rings. The best wear life on an engine is to set them up where they're at 180 degrees, and they start out at the wrist pin, because engines, especially V type engines, these are not going to be the same because it's a vertical. But on a horizontal V, to make the rings last as long as possible, since engines have a tendency to oval out, then since rings do rotate around the piston as long as the engine's kept clean, then you want those to stay clean so they'll rotate approximately the same speed. When an engine loses compression, a lot of the time it's because the ring gaps have all lined up like this, and compression goes straight through. So that's something to look for. Sometimes you can just pull the heads off, pull the crankcase cover off, and then shove the pistons out. And if you find that, unalign them as maximum as possible and put the engine back together, and you'd be surprised how many more hours or years you can get out of that thing. Okay, so let's get a rag here and we'll wipe this off one more time, and we'll put the filter back on this thing. We're going to rinse the filter out before we do that. We'll put the filter back on. We'll tighten up the drain valve here, and then we'll fill it up with oil right over here. And as you can see, I got out the circus tent here because the circus has come to town, and we'll fill this thing up with oil, fire it up, run it for a little bit, do this all over again. So be right back. Now then, boys and girls, as you can see here, we've got the dipstick out right here, and it was so kind of XL Industries, Big Dog Mowers, and XL or Hustler Turf to put me a hole in here to put my dipstick in while I'm changing oil. So we're going to take this old long funnel, wrong kind of funnel to do this with. This is what I've got handy right now, and we're going to pour this stuff in. It's going to take a little bit. It's going to be slow, but we're going to fill that puppy up, and then we're going to fire it up and let it run for a little while. And then this thing should be pretty clean. Real quick, while we're doing this, would somebody look, see how many liters and quarts and pints and ounces this thing's supposed to hold? I'm going to put about 2 quarts in it. That ought to do it. Now, generally, if I was changing oil in this thing for this stuff to stay in there, I'd let that drain for a long time to get it all in there. But for video purposes, we're not going to let it drain that long, because we're just going to throw this oil away anyhow, which is a shame. But you don't want it in your motor, and I don't want it in mine either. And what we're trying to do is tune this old girl up so it's We're not going to run it off this stuff. And as I said earlier, this is just an SAE 30. Now the specs on this is, just like that 2050 I showed you a while ago, it is an API SN Plus. That would be SAE 30, that's Society of Automotive Engineers, and I forget what API stands for. There's a couple of more designations, but SN Plus is the latest, so that's good enough for this little motor. Now, just for the heck of it, I looked at the lawnmower, the oil made specifically for lawnmowers, and it's really funny how, if it's made specifically for lawnmowers, why it is that it has exactly the same specifications. Gee, I think that just is words. That's what it sounded like to me. Numbers don't lie, but you can make anything you want to out of words. Try not to get into political stuff here, but you get an idea what I'm talking about. Alrighty, so let that drain down for a little bit. I got a feeling we'll do a little fast forwarding through this, because who cares anything about watching oil drain down the funnel? We'll check it here in just a second, see how much we've got in there. Drop this right down here so it can be dripping into that oil drain pan. There we go. Alrighty. Now then, let's see how much oil we have in that thing. That's about 1.5 quarts plus what I got in the filter. So it says to run this down till it just clicks. And it's almost full, but not quite there, so we're going to put a little bit more in it. Alrighty, so it might just hold that 2 quarts. Now we filled the filter with automatic transmission fluid, just plain old ATF, automatic transmission fluid. And I guess I already set it back inside the house. Yes, I did. So ATF, just plain old type A suffix A transmission fluid. So to do what we're doing, you don't need Dexron, you don't need Dexron 2 or 3, you don't need Type F for Fords, just a plain old automatic transmission fluid, which will help clean out this engine, or yours. There's all kinds of ways people are saying you do these things for flushing engines. I've seen a guy do it with good old awesome cleaner, which you saw me use on the mower to clean it, all the stuff off. It's got acid in it. And it's not real strong acid. It's, you know, you can use it around your household, but it is an acidy type material that is a good cleaner. And he put, I think he said he went through that motor at one time. He only put 1 quart of oil and 4 quarts of awesome in an engine. Now guys, I'm going to tell you right now, that is a little overkill. And I'm going to say, even though it's got good oil pressure now and it wasn't rattling when it left that shop, I just about bet you within a mile or two down the road, it probably had the bearings come plumb out of it. Probably got the rods knocking like who would have thought it. But you know, it's his story and his video, so he can tell it any way he wants to. But I don't want you to do something harmful to your engine or to yourself. Safety is always a big concern. So be careful what you do, and be careful of the advices you take. And I'm no different than anyone else. If we don't use some common sense, we will certainly end up with some problems with our equipment if we don't really pay attention. So right there on the full mark. Okay, now then, let's put the lids back on these things. Let's get the key out of my pocket, which is trying to poke a hole in my pocket, which is trying to poke a hole in my leg. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and raise this camera up to right about there. I know you won't be able to see me, but you didn't come here to see me anyway. So let's give this a little throttle, a little fuel. Alrighty, let's take a look at this again here, guys. Just see how bad it looks. Don't really want that nasty oil down there on that driveway. There you go. That looks pretty good. I don't see carborundum in it. Tell you what, we'll run this thing around the yard a little while, and then we'll change it again. Alright, by the way, if y'all ain't got you one of these MaxsGarajMahal sweat rags here, tell you what, I'm going to tell you how you make your very own. And this is simple. It's one of the simplest ways to do a sweat rag. I'm going to explain this to you real quickly. Alright, what you do here is you take a pair of your personal underwear. You got to have good quality underwear, and these are Stafford from JCPenney's. Got that real soft waistband, and you notice the waistband's missing. All you do is you wear these things for about 25, 30 years, maybe 35. You get the really good ones. And when you put them on and the waistband comes up and the body of the underwear falls off, then all you got to do is wash them and put you some of that Downy in your wash. Make these good and soft, and these make excellent sweat rags. Now, I don't recommend you wipe your sweat and then clean your glasses. That creates a malfunction. You don't want that. So that's a public service announcement for you guys, just so you can learn how to do that, save yourself a lot of money. But it's embarrassing walking around with nothing but the band on, so you probably want to replace them underwear with a pair you can wear, because I don't know, I hadn't done it personally, but I've seen people walk around with just a band on, and it's not a pretty sight. So, okay, so let me change the camera around a little bit. We'll go run this thing up and down the yard and let y'all see it actually operating on its own power. Be right back. We have our pain prescription goggles on here, and see if this thing will start. I got it around here. I'll start up and run down the yard a couple times. Okay, by golly, I believe it's going to work just fine. Now, we got some other stuff to do to it. We need to change the hydraulic fluid. We've got a whole lot of things to do before we can start going fast. So, anyway, that was it. Run up and down the yard by itself. And I appreciate you guys coming by MaxsGarajMahal. And if you would, please share. Hit that little notification button down there so you can get notified new videos coming out. And if you hadn't already, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe. And again, please share. And keep up with this old Hustler Super Z 927053. That's the model number, not serial number. And it has the CV745 Kohler engine. It's got the white wheel motors. It's got the Parker pumps, hydro gear pumps. And we're going to go through all that stuff. We're going to start changing out, going bigger pumps, hopefully faster wheel motors. And maybe we'll get you some speed out of this thing. We do appreciate you one more time. As always, here at old MaxsGarajMahal. Y'all come back and see me now, yeah?